Hello, this short video is a discussion of Neat People versus Sloppy People by Suzanne Britt. This is an essay that is dealing with comparison contrast kind of technique or rhetorical mode. So we're going to take a look at, hopefully you have read this piece by now, and I hope that you did read and annotate the reading as you went along. So let's hit some of the high points. First of all, let's talk about the content, and let's talk about some of the key issues that are discussed in this piece. First of all, I want to look at that first paragraph. Now, I want you to remember this is a professional writer, which means a professional writer gets by doing things that you're not going to get by doing. For example, you'll notice there are just 3 sentences in the first paragraph. Your introduction paragraph would be much longer. But I want us to take a look at how this author grabs our attention in this first paragraph. I finally figured out the difference between neat people and sloppy people, and the distinction is, as always, moral. Neat people are lazier and meaner than sloppy people. And that's actually her thesis statement. And this is one of those readings that if you tend to be a neat person, you get angry or you take offense with things that you hear in this story. If you were a sloppy person or not as organized as you'd like to be, then you are kind of cheering a little on the inside as you read this piece. So in that thesis statement alone, she makes this bold claim that neat people are lazier and meaner than sloppy people. Well, this thesis statement puts neat people on the defensive. And this is the first time they've had that happen to them. Because think about it. What does society tell us that we need to be? They tell us, they don't say, hey, please be sloppy. Society tells us that we should be neat. In fact, when the new year rolls around, every year in January, you're going to see a lot of sales for home items, especially items that will help you get organized. You'll see things for desk or for school, things that will help you get organized. Because what is the goal? The goal is to be organized, because that's what we're told we should be. So neat people are always hailed as being the best. Whereas if you're not neat, even though you may strive to be neat, you're made to feel like you're less of a person. Now, sloppy people, you know that we may start off organized, but then other things are more important in our lives than being completely, perfectly neat. My desk starts off beautifully organized, and on a regular semester, I come back to my office and a student's waiting to talk to me, so I lay down things, and then we get to working on something and I pull out other things, and then it's time to go home. I feel much better about having spent time with students helping them than spending all that time making sure everything was perfectly in its place. Do I like things sloppy? No. I work better in a more organized, clean environment. But in my life, other things happen. And to me, those encounters with people and doing things that people need me to do are more important than whether I leave my desk perfectly in order. So we understand sloppy people. Maybe your room at home when you were growing up was not the neatest because maybe you were very involved in a lot of extracurriculars or in a sport, or you had a job and you might come home and change clothes and then run. Well, somebody asked you for something, you could go and pull it out of the pile that, it was in. You knew where it was. If mom came in and cleaned your room, you were lost. You didn't know where things were. Neat people, again, when you go from being the people that are applauded and you are so awesome because you're neat, and you read this line that you're lazy and mean, you take offense to that. That's never been a situation that you have been in. And sloppy people, you've never been in a situation where people said you're better than neat people. So she does this on purpose. She does this to rile us up. She does this. She's going to be presenting all this information about neat people and sloppy people, and contrasting those two people in such a way that is humorous. But neat people, you're angry for a lot of this, okay? Because every year that I teach this reading, my neat people come back and they're mad. They didn't like this at all. All right. Now, you'll notice that she talks about sloppy people, sloppy people, sloppy people, sloppy people through these first 4 paragraphs. Okay. And then she shifts to neat people, and she talks about neat people for the rest of the paragraphs. So what we're seeing here is, what we call a point. She's talking about the same general points in reference to sloppy people and neat people, but she's doing it in what we call that subject by subject or block format, because she's talking about sloppy people in reference to certain criteria or points. She's talking about sloppy people in one big block. All right. Now, she's divided that big block into separate paragraphs, right? Because that's where she's dealing with each of those individual kind of issues. And then she's going to move to the second block on the second subject, which is neat people. And so she's going to talk about the same sorts of things, like the attitude of the people, what they care about and don't care about, right? How they handle trash and organization, mail. So you've got this subject by subject or block format, because you've got subject 1, sloppy people, then you've got subject 2, neat people, but we're addressing the same issues for both of these. Let's go to this second page. I'm trying to move this document. So we see on this second page the continuation of that neat people block, right? Because that's subject 2. Now, she has a very abrupt ending, okay? She's talked about subject 1, she's talked about subject 2, and then she just stops there. But notice this last few sentences. She's talking about how neat people cut a clean swath through the organic as well as the inorganic world. People, animals, and things are all one to them. They're so insensitive. After they've finished with the pantry, the medicine cabinet, the attic, they'll throw out the red geraniums, too many leaves. They'll sell the dog, too many fleas, and send the children off to boarding school, too many scruff marks on the hardwood floors. And she just abruptly ends it there. Why do we think that she does that? Because she has hit the most absurd. She has been talking about neat people as being neurotic and just so willing to throw out everything. And she's just on this kind of almost a rant, but not quite, at the end, where she's talking about all of the things that they do, and she's just reached the over-exaggerated, so absurd mark. There's no reason to go on, right? So throughout this, she has painted a picture of sloppy people being the desired group, which goes against, as we mentioned before, what society says. So when you think about what is it that she seems to be saying in this reading, because remember, we always want to look at purpose. Well, she seems to be she's not just making fun of neat people and saying sloppy people are awesome. It's bigger than that. That's exactly, she has turned the tables on what is the norm. She has turned the tables on making fun of sloppy people to making fun of neat people. And it makes neat people mad. And in the process of doing all this, she has proven a big point. She has proven that, it's okay to be neat. It's okay to be sloppy. what's not okay is that society and society's rules and norms seem to think that they are capable of determining what is good and what is bad, when in reality, there's nothing wrong with either one of these people. They're just different, and different's okay. In a society that accepts differences and wants to say that everybody is important and it's acceptable whatever somebody's choices are, it's the same society that tells us what we should be wearing this year and how we should look and what we should be doing. So she makes that bigger universal point that it's ridiculous to say that one type of person is better than another type of person, especially in a world where we say we are accepting and that all people matter. So she makes a great point, and it wouldn't be the same if she was just talking about if this whole essay wasn't funny, if the whole thing wasn't over exaggerated or absurd. Neat people would have never listened. It would have been more of what they already knew, that they're great. And this idea that sloppy people are great would have been a little hard to listen to, but okay. By making this humorous and absurd, she gets that bigger point across. See how you feel today, neat people? As I've attacked you, that's the way sloppy people have felt their entire lives while everybody else was telling you you were awesome. So that bigger point about society and about embracing who we are and just doing what works for us in spite of society is that bigger point. So hopefully you see in this one, and I'm going to try to go back to page 1. Hopefully you see in this one that this is mainly a contrasting essay, right? Because it's not comparing them really in any way. It's more contrasting. And hopefully you see that this is a subject by subject, a block format essay. Again, remember, this is a professional writer, and so there are a lot of things that aren't as clear, or there are a lot of liberties that have been taken. Yours will be a lot, different, but I just want you to see that difference between having that block for subject 1 and that block for subject 2, and having that ultimate reason that you were doing that comparison contrast. She has a purpose. She has a mission by doing this contrast of these two different types of people. So you want to make sure that you've got that mission. You want to be sure that you're covering the same points with one subject as you are with the next. That concludes this short lecture on neat people versus sloppy people in comparison contrast format.